Putin and Donald Trump have been pushing this nonsense conspiracy theory involving Ukraine and how it allegedly tried to meddle in our 2016 presidential election. Now that has been debunked over and over again, but that hasn't stopped some of Trump's lackeys from regurgitating this propaganda. One of those lackeys was Senator Kennedy, who recently went on Chuck Todd's show, Meet the Press, and found himself having to defend the statements that he made about Ukraine. Take a look.
Now, come on. I mean, I got to put up, you realize the only other person selling this argument outside the United States is this man, Vladimir Putin. This is what he said on November 20th. Thank God nobody is accusing us anymore of interfering in US elections. Now they're accusing Ukraine. Well, let them sort this out among themselves. You just accused a former president of Ukraine. You've done exactly what the Russian operation is trying to get American politicians to do. Are you at all concerned that you've been duped?
No, because you just read the articles. Do you believe The Economist magazine is a reputable journal? It's been around, I think, since 1843. Let me put it this way, Chuck. Let's suppose, and I don't believe it, but you're right, and I'm wrong. Then what harm would it do to allow the President of the United States, who has a demonstrated record fighting foreign corruption, to introduce evidence?
Why doesn't he?
What harm would
He has been
That's called
provided. He has been provided every opportunity to provide exculpatory evidence on any of this, and they have chosen not to.
No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't.
So he was suggesting, Kennedy was suggesting that Ukraine, there's a possibility that Ukraine could be guilty of hacking into the DNC server to obtain those emails. Again, look, Fiona Hill, who is part of the intelligence community, testified during the impeachment investigation and specifically called this out and said, look, there are some Republican lawmakers who keep pushing this propaganda that Ukraine was behind that hack. And Ukraine was absolutely not behind that. It was 100% Russia. We have evidence to show that. And this is incredibly harmful toward Ukraine. And by the way, it's totally harmful toward everything that's going on right now because it delegitimizes every single part of our government, right? Just to do Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin's bidding.
So let me be as clear as we can possibly be about what a wild conspiracy theory it is that Ukraine interfered in an election. So what is the theory? Well, Trump laid it out in the call with Zelensky, the Ukrainian president. He said, look, CrowdStrike has a server in Ukraine, and so I want you to investigate that. Now, Trump has said that CrowdStrike is a Ukrainian company that took the servers of the Democrats,
the DNC servers,
and somehow brought them over to Ukraine and are still hiding them in Ukraine. CrowdStrike is not at all a Ukrainian company. It's an American company based in Sunnyvale, California. The material, the information that the people who hacked the DNC servers got is not in a server, it's in the cloud. There's no physical server in Ukraine or in Sunnyvale. It's in the cloud. I like that I pointed out. Okay, so there's no basis at all for this wild, insane conspiracy theory. So then the people who originally put out that conspiracy theory, turns out, was not Trump, it was Putin. So Putin says, oh yeah, I think the Ukrainians have a server that they're hiding, right? And Trump doesn't know anything about a cloud, doesn't know anything about servers, doesn't know any of that, right? So he says, oh, Vlad told me to tell you guys that it's Ukraine. That works for me, that works for Vlad, it works for everybody who's crooked. So now the entire Republican Party is like, yep, nope, there is no cloud, it was a server, it's a Ukrainian company, I don't care that it's based in California. I'm just gonna lie to you on behalf of both Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. The entire Republican Party, they've all become stooges for Putin. It is disgusting, absolutely disgusting. If the Democrats had done 1% of this, 10% of this, the Republican Party would have shredded them. And the media would have gone along. They'd almost like put the Democratic Party out of business right now if they'd done 10% of this, working on behalf of Putin, like the obvious sick stooges that they are, with wild, insane conspiracy theories. They don't even bother backing up with one fact.
Okay, so here's where I think the biggest problem is, right? Because Republicans are gonna Republican, Trump is gonna Trump. They're gonna do what they do. And they're not gonna have any real evidence to back up their arguments. They're gonna spread propaganda, they're gonna spread lies, they're gonna do whatever is possible to show Trump that they're loyal to him, right? And in fact, Trump recently tweeted in response to Senator Kennedy, thank you to great Republican Senator John Kennedy for the job he did in representing both the Republican Party and myself against sleepy eyes Chuck Todd on Meet the Press.
No,
Meet the Depressed, okay.
Wow. Meet the Depressed, that's so clever. Not remotely clever.
Okay, so they're his lackeys. Of course, they're gonna go on any show, any network or cable show and pretend like they're supportive of Trump, that they believe him, that they think he's innocent, because they care about their political careers. So stop having them on the shows. Look, the reason why we talk about it on this show is because you need someone in the media to debunk this nonsense. Otherwise, you just have all these mainstream media outlets who provide the platform, but very rarely challenge these lawmakers. Now, in this case, Chuck Todd, congratulations, you challenged Senator Kennedy, but more often than not, he doesn't, which is why this clip made news. Everyone's like, whoa, Chuck Todd. Did you guys see that? He challenged him. It's amazing. Let's all give him a big round of applause. Great. How about don't have these people on anymore? If you know they're lying and they're gonna lie, it's predictable. Why have them on?
Nah,
I mean, look, they're good at media blackouts. They've done it to Andrew Yang. They've done it to other, Democratic candidates. And in that case, I think that it's completely unjustified, completely unfair, because we're just talking about someone who has different ideas. Let's hear them. In this case, you have people who are enabling criminality in the executive branch.
Yeah. So, well, your last point's really good. But let me disagree with the first one. I think you should have them on, but that should not be the exception, it should be the rule. I thought Chuck Todd did a good job there. And I liked that he had Putin's quote ready to go. It would have been great if they had Fiona Hill's quote too, but that's nitpicking. An actual aggressive challenge. I agree with you, Anna, that it's making news because the mainstream media almost never challenges Republicans. So when they do, they're like, whoa, where did that come from? But give credit where credit is due. Chuck Todd did a good job on that. He's done a good job on this issue before. And so I think you should have him on and shred them. So that's a fine point of disagreement to have. But your second point is a bit devastating, because the mainstream media will say, what am I gonna do? That's the Republican Party, that's half the country. Well, not really, it's now about 35 to 40% of the country, but I gotta have them on. They're one of the major parties. I'm actually very open to that argument. I agree with that. On the other hand, but you never have Andrew Yang on, you never have progressives on. So progressives are arguably just that wing of the Democratic Party, according to the polling, is larger than the entire Republican Party. I can show you a dozen polls, but do you have any progressives on? I mean, sometimes because you're forced to, you'll have Bernie Sanders on because he's top 2 candidate, but even then it's barely, right? But you like almost never have any progressives on to say things that are true and rational, but yet you fill your airtime with these guys who are now, I mean, John Kennedy used to be a person with some degree of intellect and some degree of principle, even though I disagreed with him on everything. Now he's become the saddest little puppy dog
100%
for Donald Trump.
100%, but I have to add one other thing, because let's be fair. It's not just about Republicans. Right before that interview with Kennedy, he interviewed Amy Klobuchar. And Amy Klobuchar put out a bunch of lies regarding what Medicare for All would actually do.
That I guarantee you he didn't challenge her on.
He did not, that's my point, Okay, so it's frustrating because they know everything is so predictable. Chuck Todd, in response to Kennedy, had that graphic ready to go because he already knew what Kennedy was gonna say, right? They know what they're doing, and the fact of the matter is, a lot of our societal issues come from the fact that the media is not doing its job. They refuse to challenge certain lies, and then they platform people without challenging them when they're enabling criminality most of the time. In this case, again, Chuck Todd did challenge Kennedy, but how did we get to this point? How is it that so many Americans right now believe the nonsense and the lies coming from the Republican Party? It's because the media consistently has failed to do its job.
Well, look, if they were doing their job, and see, this is where they would say, oh, no way, we can never ever say this. They would say that the entire Republican Party is lying. On this issue, there is no question. You don't have to say they're lying about being pro-life or pro-choice, that's an opinion. But there are actual facts in the world. And when the Republican Party lies in its entirety on the issue of the server in Ukraine and almost every other defense of Trump on impeachment, they are actual provable lies, and it is your job to say, yes, it is the entire Republican Party. And they would never say that because they'd be like, oh no, we would offend Republican viewers, we would offend Republican Party, they wouldn't give us access. Okay, then fine. Just say, look, admit it. You should run a logo that says we do political correctness on behalf of the Republican Party. We don't tell you the whole truth because then we might lose access to Republicans. And by the way, we also, much worse when it comes to the Democrats, we cover up 3/4 of the truth. So we never tell you that Medicare for All actually provides you better insurance than private insurance.
Exactly.
That it covers more. We never ever tell you that. We never ever tell you that the current system costs twice as much as any other country that has single payer. We never tell you that. In fact, we tell you the replacement, it would be more expensive, which is just a flat out lie, but we all say it and we platform all the moderate Democrats, all 32 of them in the race, right? And we never challenge them on any of that. And whenever there's a progressive on, we yell at them, oh, Bernie Sanders, this is gonna cost too much money, even though they're totally wrong on that issue. So look, yes, the mainstream media has massive problems in how they're covering politics. You should care about the facts and not about your desperate need to appease mainstream Democrats and lying Republicans. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.